You're welcome, our student, in a new episode from your program مدرسة على الهواء. And we also welcome with Mr. Muhammad. Welcome, Mr. Muhammad.
Welcome, Mr. Wael, in this episode, and we will study a new lesson in this episode as we will talk about vector and scalar physical quantities, lesson 2 or lesson 3 in unit 1. Okay, Mr. Wael?
Don't forget to call us answering our questions that we gave you last episode. Thank you for everyone who was interactive with us on the Facebook last time. And wait our answers. Don't forget. Okay. Mr. Muhammad, today we will talk about physical quantities.
Yes.
What are types of physical quantities?
Okay. So before here we talk about the physical quantities or types of physical quantities, we should know how can we identify or what is meant by the physical quantities. Here we have أي حاجة or anything can be measured, considered as physical quantities. أي حاجة نقدر نقيسها. So here we have a general definition for physical quantities. All physical quantities as anything can be measured. Can be measured like time, like acceleration, like distance, like displacement, velocity, and so on. But here we have to know the types of physical quantities in this lesson, as we have two main types of physical quantities, as we have scalar physical quantities and vector physical quantities. So let's go to start our lesson today. Don't forget to call us on phone number, and we have here to study the scalar and physical quantities. We have here on the monitor lesson 3 in unit 1, physical quantities زي ما احنا شايفين كده قدامنا. lesson 3 scalar and vector quantities. عندنا نوعين, as we have scalar and we have vector physical quantities. So let's go to start with the first type, and we have here to identify or to define the physical quantities. بنعرف physical quantities. Anything can be measured as mass, length, time, as speed, force, energy, temperature, and so on. As we have to know the definition generally of physical quantities, anything can be measured. أي حاجة نقدر نقيسها considered as physical quantities. So here we have many physical quantities, as we have, as you see, we have mass, كتلة طبعا, length, time, speed, force, energy, temperature, density, and so on. So here we have as a ruler here used to measure مثلا the length, or here we have the balance used to measure the mass of the objects. So we have to identify the scalar physical quantity. We have the first type as number 1, scalar physical quantities. Okay, what is meant by scalar physical quantities? Here we have to identify or to define physical quantities as physical quantities identified by magnitude only. What is meant by magnitude? Magnitude معناها ايه؟ كلمة magnitude دي. Magnitude which means what? Magnitude بالعربي معناها قيمة. تمام؟ أو مقدار. تمام؟ يبقى أنا هنا to identify by magnitude. As we have, for example, we have here magnitude classified or consist of two parts. بيتكون من جزئين. Number 1 we have number, and number 2 we have measuring unit. We have what? Number and measuring unit. So here we talk about magnitude. يبقى لما يقول لي what is meant by magnitude أو أنا to study magnitude of any physical quantity, so we talk about two main factors. Number 1 number, and number 2 measuring unit. As we have, for example here, dear students, we have many examples. As we have mass, we have length, we have speed, we have time, we have energy. Okay, these physical quantities are called scalar physical quantities, and temperature here. For example, how can we identify mass? As we have here, for example, 4 kilogram. So if we have or we say 4 kilograms, we talk about what? Yes, we talk about mass. If we have here, dear students, as you see here, 6 meters, for example, so we talk about length or distance. If we have, as you see, مثلا 7 meters per second. So here we talk about what? We talk about speed. If we talk or we say here, as you see, 4 hours. So we talk about what? Yes, we talk about time. If we have to say in any example or any problem, مثلا زي ما احنا شايفين هنا 8 joules. So we talk about energy. And the last example, if we say 10 Celsius, so we talk about temperature. So any example here, we identify the physical quantity by knowing magnitude only. Just we need number with measuring unit to identify the physical quantity. Okay.
So the definition of scalar physical quantity,
Yes.
it is the physical quantity maybe that has magnitude only.
Identify by magnitude only. Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Or its magnitude is enough to.
Yes.
Only is enough to identify it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So as Mr. Well said in this point, we just need to know the physical quantity from its magnitude. بنعرفها من القيمة بتاعتها بس. As we have energy, temperature, length, distance, speed, time, and so on. But we have another physical quantities at the same time. We just need to identify by 2 factors. We just need to identify by number 1, magnitude, and number 2 we identify by direction. يعني لازم أعرفها بmagnitude بالمقدار, and at the same time we just to know the direction of this physical quantity. Not enough to identify by magnitude like the scalar physical quantity. So we have to mention the definition of this physical quantity as you see here on the monitor. زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا, we have the next or the second type of the physical quantity, as we have physical quantities identified by magnitude and direction. So here we have, as you see, dear students, we have number 1 magnitude and number 2 we have direction to identify these physical quantities. يعني بعرفها بالمقدار والاتجاه. يبقى we identify these physical quantities by number 1 magnitude, number 2 direction. As we have many examples here, maybe we can't differentiate between them in first prep. في أولى إعدادي ما كناش قادرين نفرق ما بينهم مثلا, but in third prep we should differentiate between these physical quantities and the other scalar physical quantities. لازم نفرق ما بينهم. As we have many examples, for example, we have acceleration, force, velocity, displacement. All these physical quantities are called what? Are called what? Yes, called vector physical quantities, which means identify by magnitude and direction. We have here measuring units. As we have acceleration, to identify acceleration we should identify number 1 magnitude, 5 meters per second squared, and at the same time we should identify or know the direction of this acceleration, northward or southward. At the same time, as we have force here, مثلا the measuring unit of force is Newton. As we studied before in first prep, زي ما خدنا في أولى إعدادي قبل كده. We have here force مثلا 3 Newton. Okay? So we identify by what? Magnitude 3 Newton, and at the same time direction, maybe forward. يعني للأمام. Okay? As we have, for example, زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا برضو هنا عندنا velocity. الvelocity بقى الفرق ما بينها وما بين السبيد ايه؟ Velocity has برضو magnitude and direction. And we have another difference as the definition. هنعرفه بعد شوية. But here we have number 1 مثلا هقوله velocity, the same measuring unit, 3 kilometers per hour. But we need to know the direction, as we have what? Southward. جنوبا. Okay? So we identify velocity by what? Number 1, as we see, magnitude. And number 2, as we have here, direction, to identify them. Displacement. لو شايفين مع بعض قدامنا في حاجة اسمها displacement. Displacement, the measuring unit, like distance. As we have 10 meters. But we have to identify its direction, as we have, for example, leftward. يعني لإيدي الشمال يعني، أو left sides. هنا يبقى we identify by magnitude and we identify by direction. So here, dear students, we can differentiate between vector and scalar physical quantities as definition as examples. So scalar physical quantities identify by magnitude only. Magnitude only. We just identify again by magnitude only. But the vector physical quantities identify by two factors. As here we need to identify the magnitude, and at the same time we need to identify the direction of these physical quantity. يعني لازم أعرف اتجاهها فين.
There is a question.
Yes.
Give reason.
Give reason
Force
for.
is a vector physical quantity.
Give reason for. نكتبه هنا قدامنا اهو. Force is a vector physical quantity. Okay, so we should know. We talk about what? We talk about vector physical quantity. So we identify this quantity by what? Yes. يبقى هقول له because force identify or identifying by knowing what and what. Number one and number two, we identify by knowing magnitude, and number two, we knowing what the direction. So we know now how can we differentiate between vector and the scalar physical quantities. Okay.
Mr. Muhammad, can I ask you?
Okay.
How can we differentiate between displacement and distance?
Distance. Okay. This is a good question from Mr. أ-وائل. How can we differentiate between distance and displacement? In first prep في أولى إعدادي, some students maybe answer the question according to distance or displacement. Okay. But here in the third prep, we should differentiate between distance and displacement. Distance is the actual length between 2 points. هي المسافة الواقعية اللي أنا مشيتها بالفعل between 2 points. If I want to go toward this camera, toward this screen, أنا عايز أتحرك في اتجاه الكاميرا دلوقتي. I can't move through the desk or this table. مش هينفع أتحرك خلال الترابيزة. So I should go leftwards then forward. صح؟ So my distance is what? Is the length from this point to this point, then toward the camera, as you see. But if I want to calculate the displacement, here I will calculate the shortest straight line between the 2 points. أقصر خط مستقيم ما بين نقطتين. So the shortest straight line between me and this camera is this length. صح؟ Okay. يبقى هنا we differentiate between the actual length اللي أنا مشيته فعلا و between the shortest straight line between the 2 points. If we want to identify or to differentiate between distance and displacement, distance is the actual length. The definition of distance is the actual length between 2 points. And we know distance is a scalar physical quantity. Just we identify by magnitude. But at the same time, we should know how can we define displacement. Displacement لا. Displacement هي أقصر خط مستقيم ما بين نقطتين. يبقى short straight line between 2 points. يعني بجيب لها أو بجيب له من الآخر كده. أوكي؟ يعني ممكن لو نبص على المونيتور كده. As we see here the definition of distance. نشوف مع بعض. Distance is what? Is the actual length between 2 points or between the starting point and the ending point. من نقطة هنا 2 points مقصود بيها نقطة البداية starting point وهنا number 2 the ending a point. Okay, Mr. وائل. يلا. Okay, Mr.
Okay, let's have just a short break, okay?
Okay.
And we wait you again. Welcome again, and let's go on. Mr.
Okay.
Muhammad.
Okay, here we have to identify or define the distance. Distance is the actual length between the 2 points. يعني between starting point and ending point, as we have to calculate all length of your trip. يعني كل اللي انت مشيته في رحلتك toward the school, then if you return back again to your home. So we have here, as we see, actual length between the 2 points. We have number 1, starting point here, and we have number 2, the ending point. Okay, let's go to identify or to define the displacement. As you see here, يعني ايه بقى displacement? Displacement is the shortest straight line between the 2 points, between the starting point and the ending point. So we have in this diagram زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا, the body moves from A like that, زي ما انتم شايفين قدامكم, تحرك من A toward B in this direction. خليها بالكالر تاني اهو, كده اهو, بتحرك كده وبرجع كده. يبقى in this case body moves in this direction, make distance like that, then like that, and then reach the last point, as here we have point B. So the actual length between the 2 points here, we have what? We have distance. So we identify distance as the actual length between the 2 points, the starting point and the ending point. Where the starting point? فين starting point? Starting point is point what? Is point A here. احنا شايفينها هنا قدامنا كده, دي point A as a starting A point. Where the ending point? The ending point is B, as you see هنا زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا, point B is the ending point of the trip. So displacement here is the shortest straight line between starting point and the ending point. يعني دي displacement اهي, as you see كده. يبقى هنا we know distance as the actual length between the 2 points, and displacement is the shortest straight line between 2 points. ولما بقول 2 points, which means starting point and ending point. عندنا فيديو هنا بسيط كده to differentiate between scalar and vector quantities. As you see here, زي ما احنا شايفين كده قدامنا, scalar quantities as mass, as we have speed, time, temperature, distance, energy. All these quantities are called scalar physical quantities because they identify by knowing only the magnitude. But here we have vector quantity. We can identify by what? By magnitude and direction, as we have displacement, acceleration, momentum, force, velocity, and all these quantities we identify by knowing what? By knowing direction. As we have here, 2 points starting from, طبعا بقى لازم اعرف, خلي بالنا, direction. As force here, we know direction in what? لان الفورس scalar ولا vector؟ هيقولوا لي طبعا vector quantity. So we identify by what? By magnitude and direction. While other quantities are identifying by, yes, by magnitude only as a scalar physical quantities. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Muhammad, I think that difference between distance and displacement, the main difference is presence of direction. So
yes.
If the distance has direction, can I say it is a displacement? Can I say that this displacement is a distance in a certain direction?
Yes.
It is another definition.
Yes, another definition. We have here distance in a definite direction. So we talk about distance and the direction. So we talk about displacement. Because distance only, we talk about scalar physical quantity. Good point from Mr. Weil. Here we have to differentiate between distance and displacement. Distance is what? Is the actual length between 2 points. But if we say distance in a definite direction, يبقى احنا بنتكلم على displacement اللي هي what? اللي هي actual length between 2 points. طيب, according to distance and displacement, we can define what? We can identify speed and velocity. As we studied before in Unit 1, in Lesson 1, we have speed as What is the distance covered through time unit, or in 1 second, or as time passes, as you like. We have two factors affecting speed, as we have distance and time. But we have velocity, and the velocity are what, or is what? Is a vector physical quantity. We identify by knowing two factors, magnitude and direction. So here on the monitor, how can we define speed as a revision? Then we will define velocity. زي ما احنا شايفين كده قدامنا, we have speed. Speed is what? Is distance covered. احنا بنكمل اهو. Distance ايه؟ covered through time unit, or in 1 أو in 1 second ممكن نقولها كده. As V here speed equal what? Equal distance over time, D over T. Okay? But here we talk about what? Velocity here. احنا بنتكلم هنا على مين؟ على velocity. What is meant by velocity? أقول له بقى displacement covered through time units. So V arrow, which means velocity, equal what? Equal displacement as D arrow, which means displacement هنا distance in a definite direction over time. Over time. So displacement covered through time unit, we mean here velocity. As we have the magic triangle in front of you, we have velocity equal what? Equal displacement over what? Over, as you see, over time. يعني if we want to calculate distance, we want to calculate speed. If you want to calculate displacement, you want to calculate what? Velocity. And we have a great difference between them, and we have to know this difference from the following examples. زي ما احنا شايفين قدامنا problem كده. بيقول لي a body move from point A northwards to B covers how many? 40 meters in 5 seconds. Then moves eastward. خلي بالنا من directions, ها? Covering 60 meters in 3 seconds to point C. Then covers or moves to D southward, covers 40 meters in 2 seconds. Calculate distance, displacement, then we will calculate speed and velocity. Before we answer this question, we should draw as a draft, مش لازم by ruler. تمام؟ ممكن as drawing like that, زي ما هنعمل كده قدامكم. Body will move from point A, بس أهم حاجة direction moves northward, شمالا. طبعا احنا عارفين north, south, east and west. عارفين ال 4 directions. هيتحرك from A northward to B. Covering how many? زي ما هو قال لي كده 40 meters in 5 seconds. Okay? Then the body moves eastward, يعني شرقا, يعني على ايد اليمين, right side. Covering how many? From point B to point C. Covering how many? 60 meters in 3 seconds. Then moves what? Yes, northward. تحرك للجنوب. Southward, sorry, الجنوب. Covering how many? Yes, covering 40 meters in how many? In 2 seconds. Toward point, yes, point D. So, we need to calculate what? We need to calculate distance. Distance is the actual length between 2 points. يبقى D equal what? Equal 40 plus 60 plus 40. Because we have actual length between the starting point and the ending point. So how many? This distance equal here 140 meters. At the same time, we need to calculate displacement, D with arrow. Okay? As what? Displacement is the shortest straight line between the starting point and the ending point. So the starting point is A and the ending point is D. But here we have two sides are parallel and equal, as A, B equal 40 and DC equal 40 meters. So we have BC equal how many? Equal 60 meters. So AD equal how many? 60 meters. As we studied before in geometry, خدناها قبل كده طبعا واحنا صغيرين في الجيومتري. We know, so displacement equal how many? 60 meters. We have a great difference طبعا زي ما انتم شايفين between distance and displacement. Here we have to calculate number one, speed V equal what? D over T. As we have to calculate average speed زي ما احنا كتبنا قبل كده, total distance covered over total time taken to cover this distance. So we have 140 over 5 plus 3 plus 2 يبقى how many? يبقى 5 plus 3 plus 2.
There is a call phone.
Call phone, okay.
Khaled from Cairo. Hello, Khaled.
Hello, mister.
Hi, Khaled. How are you?
Fine.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I want to answer this question.
This
Yes.
question, okay. You can answer. اتفضل يا خالد.
Distance هتبقى 40 plus 60 plus 40.
Excellent.
With displacement هتبقى 60.
60. Yes. Speed.
والسبيد هتبقى
How many over how many?
wait seconds.
Quickly,
هتبقى
خلود.
لحظة 140 over 3
140 over how many? Over 10.
over 10.
Equal how many? 1 ولا 14؟ لا 14 طبعا. 14 what?
14 meter per second.
Okay, how can we calculate velocity? Last point.
Velocity displacement over time.
Displacement over time. Displacement
60
equal how
over-
many?
60 over 10.
60 over 10. Equal how many? 6. خالد.
6. I am sorry.
Okay, لا as you like. مفيش مشاكل. 6 what?
6
meter?
meter.
لا meter per second. أنا شفت ضحكت عليك ازاي؟ meter per second. Because we talk about what? We talk about velocity. Velocity have أو has the measuring unit like what يا خالد?
Yes, meter per second.
Like what? Velocity and what have the same measuring unit?
Acceleration.
No, speed and velocity.
Yes.
خلي بالك يا خالد. Distance and what have the same measuring units? Distance and what?
Distance and velocity.
No, displacement. خلي بالك. Distance, displacement, the same measuring units, and speed with velocity have the same measuring units.
Yeah.
But they differentiate in what? In direction. Okay? Speed has no direction, velocity has direction, distance has no direction, and displacement has direction. Okay, Khaled, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. طبعا هنا لازم زي ما خالد قال كده او هنا خالد غلط بمعنى اصح ان هو طبعا مش مشكله ان احنا نغلط، ان المهم ان احنا how can we learn from our mistakes. طبعا لازم we know the measuring units before we can calculate any problem. We should write the measuring unit beside the number to avoid these marks عشان ما نفقدش درجات. How can I calculate the distance in this case? Distance is from me to Mr. Wael, then I will return back again. So AB plus BC or BA. رجعت تاني. But in this case, my displacement equal how many? My starting point is what? Is A. And my ending point is what? Is A. So in this point, displacement equals 0. يعني if you return back again to your bed, لما ترجع كل يوم بالليل to your bed لسريرك, your displacement equal 0.
Excuse me, Fadi from Cairo.
Fadi.
Hello, Fadi, our friend.
Hello, mister.
Hi, Fadi.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You have
Do you
any
have a
question?
question?
No, I want to question. Have a question.
To have a question. We ask you any question, Yani?
Yes.
Okay. طبعا thank you فادي for your efforts on our official page on Facebook مدرسة على الهواء ابتدائي واعدادي. your answers احنا شفناها، بس طبعا في شوية mistakes احنا we will answer this problem at the last time in this episode. طيب فادي give reason for sometimes distance equal displacement. انا لسه ما قلتوش، بس انا هحاول كده اسال فادي to answer this question.
Because it's in the same direction.
Number one, but we have number two. We have two factors here. We have two conditions. We have only one way when in this case distance equal displacement. حالة واحدة بس. When the body moves in what?
In the same direction.
In a straight line in one direction. In what?
In one direction.
But in a straight line. If I move from this point toward you now in a straight line in one direction, يعني go forward, then doesn't or didn't return back, my distance مثلا 5 meters, but at the same time my displacement equal 5 meters. So we have one case, my dear students, distance equal displacement if the body moves in what? يلا يا فادي قولهم.
In straight line in the same direction.
In straight line in one direction. Thank you Fadi يعني for your efforts. Thank you. Okay, dear students, now we can differentiate between speed, velocity and distance with displacement. Mr. Weil.
Just I have a notes. The word beginning or starting point, I can say it initial point. Initial equal starting. Number two, final equal ending point. Another one. What about the circular motion? If I moved in a circular path, it's a very important point. Suppose that, as you see, Mr. Muhammad helps us on his magic board. If somebody or an object moves in a circular path.
Circular path, yes. Okay, circular path on the monitor?
Yes.
How many?
From point A.
To point how many? Yes.
And in a circular path and returning back again to point A.
To point A يعني circular path نعملها كده اهوت on the monitor هنعملها كده اهي. Yes. او نعملها circle كده like that. ممكن نغيرها تاني اهو. نعملها كده اهو. Body moves from point A like that from this point.
And covered the whole distance.
Cover the whole distance.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Then return back to its starting point.
Yes.
Or initial point?
Yes.
Point A.
What is the displacement?
Displacement here, as we know, displacement equal 0.
Yes.
Why? Because the starting point is the ending point. As we said before the call phone from Fadi, as we starting point at the same point of the ending point. يعني كل يوم لما بنرجع بالليل بيتنا بيبقى الديسبليسمنت بتاعتنا equal 0 كأننا ما عملناش displacement. But in this case بنبقى عملنا distance طبعا هي actual length between starting and ending point. طب مستر وائل, if we want to calculate here in this problem the distance بقى.
Yes.
أنا عايز أحسب الديستانس في البروبلم دي.
Yes, very good question. As you studied our student in math,
Distance?
Distance in the whole circle is equal circumference.
Circumference, yes. How many? يعني 2
by
r.
And what is the value of by, Mr. Muhammad?
22/7 or 3.14.
Yes.
Okay. So here we have distance equal what is the circumference or the parameter of the circle. يبقى لما يجي يقول لي مثلا the circumference of this circle مثلا for example is 22 meters. يبقى in this case distance equal 22 meters. But the body returned back to its starting point, so its displacement equals 0. And we have another problem مثلا. For example, if the body moves from point A toward point B, يعني يتحرك from point A to point B like that. And we know
have a circle.
Have a circle, yes. But we have here to identify what, Mr. وائل?
Displacement first?
يعني by knowing what in the circle.
Yeah, radius.
Radius, yes. يبقى هنا لازم أعرف الإيه؟ الراديوس. طبعا احنا عندنا
maybe diameter مستر محمد.
طبعا الديامتر.
Yes,
تمام. يبقى انا عندي هنا اهوت اسهل طبعا انا باي diameter، يعني انا عندي 2 radii in the circle، طبعا center of the circle. So if the body moves from point A toward point B like that, so and in this problem مثلا can radius equal 2 meters, okay, and circumference equal how many? Equal مثلا 15 meters. So if you want to calculate distance, يبقى distance هتبقى equal what? The half of circumference، يعني 15 over what? 2. okay, لأن هنا half circle not complete circle from A to B, and here we have 7.5 meters. But if you want to calculate the displacement, we have to know radius, تمام, and here we have the 2 radii, so we have to know the diameter and the 2r, يعني diameter equal to r. So 2 يبقى displacement equal 2 times 2 equal 4 meters. Okay, I hope we can complete our lesson next time, but complete our revision on unit 1 with our magic problems. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Thank you, all of our students. We hope that you got benefit from this episode, and we wait you for the next week, and we have to say goodbye.